What's up guys, Phil here with Transfer Superstars. I got some pretty bad news today. One of our overnight crew told us that we had a printhead strike. Now on this video, what we're going to do is cover what a printhead strike is, what we can do to fix this, and some tips and tricks on what you can do to prevent and things that you can pick up along the way. So let's go ahead and talk about what a printhead strike is. So a printhead strike is when the printhead makes contact with the DTF film. Now it could happen for various reasons. Now in our case, we were running a pretty long run. The film started to run a certain way. So instead of our printer stopping the printer, he went to the back of the printer and tried to fix the problem. And as soon as he turned around, minutes later, we had a strike right onto the printhead. Now this is a really bad thing that could happen because the printhead, it's really sensitive. It's got a ton of nozzles there, and if it scrapes onto the coating of the film, it could clog up any of the printheads. It could clog up 1, 2, 3, or in our case, 4 printheads. So let's go ahead and take a look at exactly what happened. So what happened is the printhead was right in the middle. When a head strike happens, you usually see some curling with the film. So it's right underneath there. There's not a lot of room between the film and the printhead, and basically it scrapes. It usually crumbles up. We took the crumble out, but I want to show you exactly the position that it happened in. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do some test prints for you so that we can see the results of a printhead strike. I'm going to go ahead and test a test print. So as you can see, I'm starting to see a lot of banding already. With our CMYK colors, especially the blues, the blacks. That's where I predominantly see the banding happening. Now this is worse than just regular banding happening from bad maintenance. A strike, it really covers up the nozzles and it stops ink from coming through, and that's why you see all the lines there. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit so you guys can see a clearer view. And these lines are not acceptable. So the next test is I'm going to run a nozzle check. All right, let's go ahead and jog the machine out so we can take a look at the nozzles. Okay, let's take a look at the nozzles. Now, the CMYK, it's ruined. It's really bad, especially the black, the cyan. The magentas looks okay, and then the yellow is pretty bad. But to my surprise, the whites actually are recovering. So initially, when we first saw this, the whites were completely damaged. Everything was terrible. Now after soaking the head with some solution, it's definitely cleared up and helped out a bit. So that's good news. I did buy 4 heads. It looks like I might just be able to get away with replacing the CMYK heads. So that's just 2 heads. So let's go ahead and take the next step. So our very first action plan is to actually soak this in solution. We have a regular solution, cleaning solution, and we have a heavy duty solution that we use. I've already soaked it for hours at a time and it hasn't been clearing up. So I'm going to go ahead and do the last resort before I actually replace the heads. So let's go ahead and jog the print heads to the side that I'm able to access. Now the next thing is I'm going to go ahead and shut off the ink line so that it doesn't the ink doesn't run when I'm changing out the print heads. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to the back of the ink lines. I'm going to go ahead and clamp the ink lines so that I can flush the heads. So depending on your printer, you have access either on this side or on this side. We have more room on this side, so I moved the print heads here. I set a microfiber cloth here. I'm actually going to be removing the white dampers as well, so that I can easily access the heads. Now that the carriage is moved, I'm going to go ahead and shut down the machine. I'm going to go ahead and set our microfiber cloth underneath. This is going to help me soak all the extra ink out. And now that the lines are clamped, I'm going to go ahead and remove. Again, I'm going to focus on the CMYK because that's going to be the problem area. This is going to be our cleaning solution with distilled water. I'm going to go ahead and go to each nozzle. Again, this is going to be a last minute resort. I'm going to go ahead and carefully push the water through, so hopefully it helps clear this out. Make sure that you guys are not using too much pressure because it is sensitive. You don't want to break the seals. So let's go ahead and flush each of the heads out. Now that I've flushed everything, I'm going to go ahead and put each of the dampers back on. So after flushing the print heads, let's give another shot with the nozzle check. Hopefully it comes back and we see some improvement. And so by looking at this, it hasn't had any improvement at all. This is the liquid from what was pushed through, but there hasn't been any improvement. The cyan remains the same, the black remains the same. There's no improvement at all. So what we're gonna do next is most likely replace the print heads. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove each damper. I'm gonna clear out the whites first so that I have room to access the CMYK print head. So there's going to be 3 screws. Now the first head is out. So these are the i3200s. These are the A1s that we purchased. You're looking at about $6,000 worth right here. I'm hoping that we can only get away with 2 of these. I'm also using really good Scotch tape. This is going to be for my printhead cables. I'm gonna go ahead and prep the cables so that the printhead exchange is going to be seamless. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and remove the print head. Now make sure that your hands are clean. There's no moisture anywhere. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove the print head cables carefully. I'm going to go ahead and mark this on the bottom as B. This will help me. Also B. Carefully remove that. You also want to check to make sure that all the terminals are clean and that they're not bent. That's going to be really important when you do this exchange. Same way, make sure that the screws are going to line up. I'm going to carefully hold on to the cables one at a time. I'm going to go ahead and insert carefully, making sure it doesn't bend any of the terminals. Making sure that it's tight. There you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape the bottom and then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the top. So I want to make sure that it is going to be as waterproof as possible. I'm actually going to trim because I've made it too long. I'm going to trim because it's too long. Now I'm also going to add another piece of tape there just to make sure that moisture is not going to get in there. I'm going to use this. All right. Let's go and do the other side. And this is really good electrical tape, which is really important. I've done it with cheap electrical tape and it makes your job a lot harder. I'm going to go ahead and carefully lay it back. Make sure you don't scratch the head. Carefully lay it back in there. Now this is also very important. You want to tighten this very carefully. The area for the screw is very sensitive, and it has broken before in the past if you tighten too tight. And as I'm tightening this print head, I'm actually moving the print head towards me on my left side. I have all the print heads in that direction. Just a slight push. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and go through each one and slightly tighten it. You don't want it too loose where it's going to require you to do several alignments, but you do want it tight enough so that it stays in place. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process for the other CMYK head. Okay, now that the head is in there, I'm going to go ahead and put the dampers back in. Okay, now let's go ahead and remove the other side. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze all the ink out, reduce this spillage. It's already clamped, but there's still some ink in there, so I just want to remove it, create some room so I can work. I want a clip. Rotate. All right, let's remove this second CMYK head. I'm gonna go ahead and prep the tape again. I'm using 6 for each side, or 3 for each side, so I'm making 6 total. I will go ahead and mark the bottom. Carefully remove, making sure the terminals are not damaged. Carefully shove it back in there. I always start from the middle, making it tight, making it flat. You want to keep this hole exposed because that goes into the groove. Fold the corners in. I'm going to go ahead and tape half of it. Start from the middle, flatten it out. Fold the corners in. Lastly, go to here. Fold the corners in. That should be now waterproof. Flatten it down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten all three corners. As you see, I'm actually pushing the print head towards me. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and tighten. Let's go ahead and insert the print heads back in. I'm going to go ahead and put in the blacks, the blue, magenta, and the yellow. Now, I noticed that the yellow is pretty empty. It's because I pushed all the inks out earlier. I do need to do a few head charges before ink starts to show. So now that everything's back in, let's go ahead and plug in the whites. Okay. Voila, there you go. I'm gonna go ahead and clean out the station. I'm gonna move the carriage back. And I'm gonna run some head clean so that I can move the ink and prime the lines and get ready to do some more nozzle checks. I'm gonna go ahead and unclip the lines. Gonna go ahead and run some head cleanings, get the ink flowing through so that we can run a good nozzle check. Try to do a few head cleanings to get the ink through, but as you can see, the dampers are pretty empty. So I'm gonna go ahead and siphon everything out and fill the lines up so that the dampers are full. I'm gonna start off with the CMYKs. I have a syringe for each color. I'm gonna keep it upside down, suck it through, there you go. Going to do the other side. I'm going to handle each color by itself. The damper is empty, suck it through, there you go. Make sure that everything is tight, everything is even, there's no leakage. Now that the CMYK is done, I'm going to focus on the white. The white should be a lot easier because everything's up front. All right, there you go. So I went ahead and sucked the ink through to fill in the dampers. I'm gonna go ahead and do a few head cleanings to get the ink into the print heads before we do the nozzle check. So let's go ahead and do some cleanings. So we'll perform a nozzle check. Okay, let's take a look at the results. So as you guys can see, we've got some pretty good nozzle checks. I only saw one broken nozzle. We'll do another head clean, but that should not affect the print moving forward. There guys, we saved ourselves 2 extra heads. I was originally intended to remove 4 and replace them, but we just removed 2. We went ahead and soaked the print heads for a few days while we waited for the heads. And hey, the white heads came back. So make sure you guys do that first. That might be a solution for you guys. Before you guys replace the heads, do a nozzle check, see exactly where you guys are at. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment below. We'll be sure to help you guys out. We'll catch you guys on that next one.